Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most chilling what-ifs of the 20th century. What if Nazi Germany had developed the atomic bomb first? At the heart of this story is one man, Werner Heisenberg, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist and the brilliant mind tasked with leading Germany's nuclear program. So, how close did they actually get? Let's set the scene. It's 1939. Two German chemists, Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann, have just achieved nuclear fit. The scientific world is buzzing. The potential for a weapon of unimaginable power is suddenly, terrifyingly real. Albert Einstein, a refugee from Nazi Germany himself, pens his famous letter to President Roosevelt, warning him of this new threat. This letter, as we know, would kickstart the Manhattan Project in the United States. Meanwhile, back in Germany, the Uranium, or Uranium Club, is formed. This is the German nuclear weapons program, and Heisenberg is its leading figure. He was one of the fathers of quantum mechanics, a true giant in the world of physics. But leading a top-secret weapons project was a completely different ballgame. The German team faced immediate and immense challenges. First, there was the resource problem. War-torn Germany was struggling. Materials like enriched uranium and heavy water, essential for a chain reaction, were incredibly difficult to produce. The Allies were also actively working to sabotage their efforts. The famous raid on the heavy water plant in Norway, for example, was a massive setback for the German program. It was a daring commando operation that essentially crippled their ability to produce one of the key ingredients for a reactor. But the biggest hurdle wasn't just resources, it was the science itself. Heisenberg and his team made a critical miscalculation. They overestimated the amount of fissile material, the enriched uranium-235 vat, would be needed for a bomb. Their calculations suggested they would need tons of it, a quantity so large it seemed practically impossible to produce during the war. In contrast, the scientists of the Manhattan Project, working with more accurate calculations, realized a bomb could be built with a much smaller amount in the kilo. This fundamental difference in understanding was a game-changer. While the Americans were racing towards a viable bomb design, the Germans were focused on a more achievable, but less direct goal: building a nuclear reactor. Their plan was to build a reactor that could sustain a chain reaction. This would have two benefits. First, it could be used as a power source. Second, and more importantly, for a weapons program, the reactor would produce plutonium as a byproduct, which could also be used to make a bomb. So, their focus shifted from a uranium bomb to a plutonium bomb, with a working reactor as the necessary first step. They built several experimental reactors, the last of which was in a cave under a castle in Heigerlech, to protect it from Allied bombing. The design was ingenious, in a way. It involved 664 cubes of uranium hanging from cables, which would be submerged in a tank of heavy water. It was the closest they ever came. But in the final experiment, just weeks before the end of the war in Europe, they still couldn't achieve a self-sustaining chain reaction. The reactor simply wasn't large enough, and they didn't have enough heavy water. They were close, but close doesn't count in nuclear physics. When the war ended, Heisenberg and 9 other leading German scientists were captured and secretly interned at an English country estate called Farm Hall. Their conversations were secretly recorded. When the news of the Hiroshima bombing was announced, their reactions were a mix of disbelief, shock, and professional envy. Heisenberg was particularly stunned. He couldn't initially believe the Allies had succeeded where he had failed. This brings us to the great historical debate. Did Heisenberg fail on purpose? Did this brilliant physicist, who understood the moral implications of such a weapon, deliberately sabotage the project from within? This is the Heisenberg mystery. The argument for intentional sabotage often points to a mysterious meeting he had in 1941. Heisenberg traveled to occupied Copenhagen to meet with his old mentor, Niels Bohr. What was said in that meeting is hotly debated. Some believe Heisenberg was trying to subtly warn Bohr and the Allies about the German program, perhaps even suggesting a mutual agreement among physicists on both sides not to build the bomb. Others argue he was simply trying to boast about Germany's progress and perhaps even recruit Bohr. Bohr's own account suggests he was horrified, believing Heisenberg was confident of a German victory. Heisenberg himself, after the war, cultivated the image of a man who had intentionally steered the project away from a bomb and towards a peaceful reactor, arguing that he and his colleagues knew the moral consequences and acted accordingly. He claimed they withheld their full knowledge from the Nazi regime. However, many historians are skeptical. The farmhall transcripts show that Heisenberg's initial scientific understanding of how an atomic bomb worked was flawed. His surprise at the small amount of material needed for the Hiroshima bomb suggests he had fully grasped the physics. This leads to the other interpretation. Heisenberg didn't sabotage the project. He simply wasn't able to solve the immense scientific and engineering challenges under wartime conditions. He failed not due to morality, but due to miscalculation and circumstance. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Heisenberg was a complex figure, a patriot, but not a zealous Nazi. He was likely conflicted. He may have lacked the full-throated, single-minded drive that characterized Robert Oppenheimer and the Manhattan Project. He was doing his duty as he saw it, but perhaps without the ruthless efficiency required to create a weapon of mass destruction. He was an academic, not a weapons engineer. Ultimately, the Nazi bomb project failed due to a combination of factors: Allied sabotage, a lack of resources, critical scientific miscalculations, and perhaps a lack of unified, fanatical will from its scientific leadership. The world came perilously close to a much darker reality. But thanks to this combination of factors, the nightmare of a Nazi atomic bomb remained just that, a nightmare. It's a fascinating and sobering story about the intersection of science, war, and morality. What do you think? Was Heisenberg a secret hero or a failed scientist? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. We'll see you in the next video.